A eulogy for Janie. Riding pasture fences side saddle always seemed to come real natural for Janie and I. We sat perched right purty for hours and hours on end, and then some more, till our bottoms got sore and we'd have permanent little railroad tracks engraved in our skin from the edges of the runners. We were an unlikely pair of Mississippi mudhounds, living down the same dusty stretch of road in yawningly forgotten cradle of the Pearl River. We shared times together just setting and playing in the shaggy warmth of the lush river grasses that skirt along the Pearl like a protective waistcoat, that were so alive and free I can't compare them to anything else. We sat together at night in the shore's embrace, under a twistin' and saggin' water oak, watching the moon cast an eerie, milky glow cascading down upon tiny ripples. Janie would turn her little head to me and ask, "Why you think we such good friends, Russell? I bet they ain't 6 hours a day we ain't together. I bet we's together more than anybody else in the whole world." I don't know, Jane. I always called her Jane when we were talking serious, just like she would call me Russell for the same reason. It made us feel grown up, like we had more important matters to tend to than just kid stuff. But I'll expect you right about us. Maybe if we try hard, we could be the best friends in the whole world too. Now, we was only 7 and 8 years old then, I being the senior. But when I looked into her eyes that night, I knew we was gonna grow old together. Aw, come on. Please, please, please. Russell, if you don't get your flat fence tattooed bottom off of that poor runner and come with me to the oak tree right now, I might not tell you my secret. Now, I was perched right nicely up on one of the sturdier runners on JD's dad's side fence, and enjoying a chocolate bar to boot, when she finally hooked me. She had been hollering at me for the last couple of hours to come down to the river with her, to no avail, but the secret had me. So, took a few more bites of the chocolate, wrapped it, and put it in my trousers pocket. I jumped down from my seat and stretched long and hard. It was almost getting dusk, and the cooler winter breeze felt good in my hair and lungs. The sun was low on the horizon, grinning in pink and red display at the fullness of the day, and the last few leaves fell and ran about in a wintry gust. I looked over at Janie and sighed. "All right, let's head on down there and break this fence." We walked in almost complete silence on the way down. The crickets chirped longingly, and the last few forgotten summer birds cricked half-heartedly from tall and aging trees. A couple of times Janie turned to me and asked, "What do you think the birds is saying, Russ?" Or, "Why you think winter winds bite the skin so much harder than others, Russ?" "I don't quite know, Janie. I guess those things is just meant to be that way." We finally approached the clearing that sat around the water oak, creating a kind of small nest for it. The grass felt like little icicles sticking out of the ground. The first of the evening's dew had settled over the river like a wet blanket, and the moon already shone brightly, reflecting a frosty haze off the river. We walked right on up to the oak tree and sat down under the boughs. "All right, so spill it, Janie. What's this secret you's talking about?" "Well, truth is, Russ, there really is no secret." I can't say I was surprised. From Janie I'd almost come to figure as much. So I asked, "Well, then what's all the big deal about?" "This," she replied, a red piece of paper out of her dress pocket. "So, could be so important about a red sheet of paper, huh?" I inquired. "Do you have any idea what today is, you lunkhead?" That was Janie's fondest name for me, and now I knew she meant business. "Today's Valentine's Day," she continued. "This here's Valentine." Now, I wasn't sure exactly what Valentine's Day was, but after considerable debating, Janie finally explained that it was a holiday where people who liked each other would exchange cards and candy and such. They also gave each other valentines, which were little notes that said things like, "Will you be mine?" and other such junk. I don't know, but it sounded kind of silly to me. "So, who's the valentine for?" I asked coolly. I already knew, but I wanted to hear her say it. "It's for you, idiot," she retorted. "Who else lives in this damn valley?" "No one, I expect, but I was just trying to make things interesting," I added, as she handed me the little red, folded scrap of paper. It was clean and crisp and had my name written on the front in scrawly letters. I opened the note and saw a heart with a nicely written paragraph in the center. I read the note carefully and slowly. Let the message sink in. "Dear Russ, I don't know why we such good friends. I don't know how we got so close, but we are, and we did. I don't know if we'll live here our whole lives. I don't know if we'll be together our whole lives, but we are right now, and I hope so in the future. I love you, Russ. Maybe I'm too young to be sure what love is, but if it exists, I'm gonna feel it for you. So I hope you can understand why we together so much, and why we such good friends and all. We's in love, Russell, and can't nobody on earth change that." I wasn't sure about love myself. I don't think I even really knew what it was or what it stood for. But if there were a word for the emotion I felt for Janie that night, love had to be the one. We sat for a while, letting the chill air cling to our breath and bodies, just sitting there in silence. I didn't have a valentine for Janie, so I offered her some of my chocolate bar, since she had mentioned something about giving chocolates on Valentine's Day. She refused and said it was okay, 'cause she knew how I felt about her. She said that her mother told her that when a girl gets to a certain age, they just know when the boys like 'em. I leaned over once and kissed her on the cheek real lightly. I think she liked it, 'cause for an instant I could swear she blushed in the moonlight. However, by that time it was getting late and cold, so I suggested we head home. Doubtless our parents had been hollering into the fields for hours. The next morning I woke early and headed to Janie's place. I was eager to see her, and so I hurried the entire way to her porch. When I got there and knocked on her front door, her pa leaned out and said she was sick and couldn't come out and play. I was sad, a little upset, and thought about going around to her window, but I decided not to bother her. I wasted the day away in farmland fashion and came back to Janie's early the next morning. The exact same thing happened again, but this time her pa said she was real sick and was going to Charleston, the town about 20 miles east, to see the doctor. So I waited nervously and wasted another day away, knowing that when I saw Janie, the next day she would be better because of the doctor. Morning came slow and long. It seemed like weeks since I seen Janie last. I scurried up her driveway, which is no more than a worn path dirt leading to her doorstep, all the while feeling a bit uneasy at the 3 cars that were parked on the lawn. Not many people owned cars around us. Well, none in fact, and to see 3 in one place was rather peculiar. I tapped on the door real lightly, and Janie's ma answered it. She was dressed all in black, with red-rimmed eyes, and she seemed awfully sad. She stooped down next to me and drew me up into her arms and cried on my shoulder for what seemed like hours. I thought about asking her what the problem was, but before I could speak, she drew in a deep breath and started speaking to me in breathy and cold tones. "Janie died last night, Russell. She was real sick, and her little body just couldn't handle it. The doctor tried, but he couldn't help her. She was too far gone." The words hit like a truck. I was crushed instantly. I hadn't even gotten a chance to say bye or nothing. I pulled out of her mother's grasp and sprinted out of the yard, out past the trail, and all the way to the oak. I sat and cried for hours, days, I don't know, forever. I sat under our oak and cried until my eyes were dry and my head ached from sobbing. Finally, I got up the courage to stand and walk home. Took me a long time, sad and heavy as I was, and it was already dark by the time I reached my house. When I got inside, I found a piece of paper and a pen. Started writing. I wrote a valentine for Janie, since I never gave her one. It was the only way I could think of to lift the heavy burden of her death from my shoulders. The next day I read the valentine at her funeral. Everyone cried for hours once I had finished. I think they finally realized what Janie and I had meant to each other. Dear Jane, I never got to say bye or anything else. You left without an explanation. You crushed my heart only days after I finally found it. I loved you, Jane, like the grasses love the river, or like the runners love the fence posts, or like the sky loves the sun. I still love you, more than anything, more than everything. I don't know why we were such good friends. I don't know how we got so close, but like you said, we were and we did. We didn't live here our whole lives. We weren't together our whole lives, but we were for a while. And those memories are the peace that I cling to so selfishly, now and forever.